Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a 90-degree transitional elbow. So like so. We'll be working with a 2-inch by 6-inch vertical rectangle. And we're going to transition it to a 5 by 2 horizontal rectangle. And we're going to give it a 2-inch throat. 2 inches, and we're going to give it a 2.5 inch drop, or you can go from the bottom up 1.5 inches lift. And by the time we get done, we'll be producing these patterns to make this. All right, let's get to it. Okay, let's go ahead and start off by making a 90-degree so that we can get our 2 by 5 exposed from the top view. Okay, so we said we're going to give it a 2-inch throat, so 1, 2. And then a vertical rectangle at 5 inches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on this side also 2-inch throat, 1, 2, but it's going to start off at 2 inches, 1, 2, rectangle by 6. So as you can see, 2 inches, 2 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches. Alright, let's get a throat made. Okay, now what we're going to do is leave it there in the same position, open this up to the top, lock it in place, sharp point here now, strike an arc there, sharp point there, and start from the top and do an arc. Leave in the same position, open up your pencil point to that point there, lock it in place, sharp point here now, okay, now let's go ahead and divide this in half. Okay, you're going to run a line here to that point there. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Let's cut that in half. Run that line from here to that point there. Okay, now let's go ahead and label this. This will be letter A, B, letter C, D, E, F, and this will be G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Just like that. Okay? Alright, so now what we're going to do is first we're going to make a what I call a true length rectangle right here on the top so that we can get both the heel and the throat made. So these two, you're going to pick the biggest or the longest piece first, which is going to be your heel. So let's go ahead and figure out what the length is of this whole section right here. So the way you do that, if you can imagine, we have a 90-degree line. That'll be your radius. So you have a 4-inch radius right here. So what you can do is use your calculator. You can go 4 inches times 1.57 equals 6 and 1.25. So that's from here to that point there has a length of 6 1/4. What you can also do is use one of these flexible tape measures, and sometimes it's good practice to do it manually because sometimes the calculator could be a little off, not by much, but in this case I found that it was off about 1/16 of an inch, and it might not be a big deal for some people, but when it comes down to making it in bigger pieces as opposed to this scale here, sometimes it does kind of come in handy to kind of do it manually, just to see if you're off about maybe an eighth or a quarter off or whatever. But you know, that's really up to you whether you want to be exact or no. So what I have right there is 6 5/16, so I'm about 1/16 short. So I can go with 6 1/4, or in this case I'm just going to go with 6 inches and 5/16. And then from here to here we have length of 3 inches. So this is 3 inches right here. That's 6 5/16. So 6 inch and 5/16 plus 3 inches equals 9 5/16. So my true length rectangle is going to measure in length 9 5/16. Now as far as the height goes, we said that we're going to give it a 2 by 6, so it's going 2 inches, but it's going to go up 2 inches vertically, or rather 6 inches, sorry, so 2 by 6. So my vertical line is going to measure 6 inches. Okay, so we're going to go 6 inches up, and we're going to go 9 5/16 vertically, so I'm just going to go past that. Okay, so let's go ahead and measure horizontally 9 5/16. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 5/16. And then vertically we said we want to go 6 inches, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the compass at this point and measure 6 inches. 1 2 3 4 5 6. I'm going to lock it in place. 6 inches. Sharp point here. Strike an arc on the top. Same thing on this side. And then do an arc. Leave it in the same position. Open it up to your horizontal length. Going to lock it in place like so. Sharp point here now. And we're going to crisscross the previous arc, and there's the other corner of your true length rectangle. Okay, we said that we're going to have it drop from here down 2.5 inches. So take a tape measure here, and we're going to drop 2 inches, 2.5 inches down. So 1 2.5, and then it's 1 2 inches in how it opens up. So we have 2 inches right here, 2 inches right there. Okay. Okay, next step, let's go ahead and get some lines from here to there. Do the same thing on the top. And that should be your heel. Pretty close, right? And that will go right here. As you can see, wraps pretty good, pretty close. Okay, now that we have that, let's go ahead and get our throat. So the same thing that we did here, let's go ahead and find out what this radius is. So this has a radius of 2 inches. So same deal, you can use your calculator. You can go 2 inches times 1.57 equals 3 1/8. So this, from this point to here, has a stretch length of 3 1/8. So I can write it here if I want, 3 1/8. So we want to measure from here to here, 3 1/8. So 1, 2, 3 1/8. Same thing on the top, 1, 2, 3 1/8. Let's go ahead and get a vertical long line to both marks. Okay, same deal from here. So we want to go from here down, drop 2.5 inches, or you can go from the bottom up 1.5, either or. I'll go from the bottom, so 1.5, and then it has a 2-inch opening, so 1, 2. You can do the same thing from here. Actually, no, that's done. Apologize. So now, connect these 2 points like that, and like that, and that should be our throat, which should be that. Kind of close. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And that goes right here. Pretty easy. Okay, now that we have that, now what we're going to do is we're going to convert this into a true length rectangle so that we can triangulate these letters and transfer them onto here. So just a quick little thing here. As you can see, this point D is right here. You see this elevation? And D is shared in the same elevation as letter E. See that? So D would be here, E would be right there. And the same thing with A and B. If you look at it this way, they share the same elevation. So A and B would be here. The same thing can be said on the bottom side. A and B are on the same elevation, but when it goes up, as you can see, D and E are on the same elevation right here, D and E. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to separate these in 2 halves so that we can distinguish from the top and the bottom. Okay, so just follow my lead. This will make more sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a horizontal line right here. So we want 1, 2.5 inch drop. So right there, and then 2 inches, so 1, 2. Make a line like that. Same thing on this side. And make your line. Okay, so before I go any further, so that there's no confusion, we're going to label these now. So this is from the top going down. So this is going to be elevation letters A and B. Okay, and then this line here is going to be elevation letters D and E. So D and E right here. And the same thing can be said on the bottom portion. This side here is shared by both letters A and B, which is going to be right here. A and B. And then it's going to go up to this elevation level right here, which is going to be shared by both letters D and E, which is going to be right here. So that's going to be D and E. Okay, so what we want to try to do now is find 2 more letters. We want to try to find C, or rather F, for both sides, and letter C for both sides as well. So the way you do that is, first we know that from here to here is 3 inches. See that? 3 inches. 3 inches on the heel side. So go ahead and measure 3 inches down and up on the heel side. So you can go 1, 2, 3. Same thing on this side. Remember, on the heel side, not the throat. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we know that G is right here. And the same thing from here, G is right there. So we know that from here to here, this halfway point is split in half. So that means that this midpoint is going to be C. So what we're going to be doing is bisecting some lines between E and G so that we can find C. So just follow my lead. So we're going to do some bisecting in hopes that they crisscross each other. So let's see. Nope, they don't. I need to close it just a little bit more. Okay, so let me do this again. Okay, let's try it again. Yes, they do. Okay, so that's good. So we'll keep going. Hopefully they'll intersect. Barely. Okay. So I guess we can do the same thing on this side. Keep it in the same opening. And let's see if they intersect each other. Barely. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so run a line between that point to that point. Do the same thing on this side. From this to this. Boom. Okay, let's clean this up. Okay. So these 2 points here, this and this, that's letter C. See that? And C is right here. So what we want to try to do is find the elevation and transfer it onto these 2 spots right here. So the way I do that now is you can just kind of eyeball it, kind of measure the elevation from one line to the mark, or like so, more or less, and then transfer it like so, and then do the same thing on this side. You can kind of more or less kind of center it, just eyeball it like that, and then transfer it over. Might not be perfect, but if you can find other ways of doing it, by all means do it. So now what you do is you run a horizontal line across. Do the same thing on this side to there. Okay, so now what you've done is you found letters C for both the top and on the bottom. So this is level C, elevation letter C, and the same thing on this side, elevation letter C. Okay, so now that we found these elevations, now we have to find the last one, which is letter F. So this was pretty easy. You know that this is on the throat side, it's split right down in half. So all you do is just bisect these 2 lines right here, or rather these 2 points, to get the middle portion of your throat. So just follow my lead and hopefully this will make more sense. So you're going to just split these 2 in half. You can do some bisecting. Same thing on this end. Okay, now you're going to run a horizontal line across from one X to another. And that is letter F, elevation letter F. Same thing on this side. Do some crisscross arcs or bisecting. Same thing on this side. And make a horizontal line. And now you found F for the top side. So there's F. Okay, let me erase these. Alright, now that we have this kind of set up, now we need to do is follow steps 1 through 5 to triangulate these letters onto our true length rectangle. So just follow my lead. So step 1 is the easy one. We really don't have to do that, and that's basically A, B, and letter G are equal 90 degrees, so we don't need to triangulate that. But we do need to triangulate step 2, which is AC and BC will find us C. So let's go ahead and triangulate that. So put your compass on A or C, vice versa. So in this case, I'm going to go A to C. Lock it in place. Put my sharp point on elevation letter A on this line. Strike an arc here. And I'm going to call this A to C. A to C, and then I'm going to leave it in the same position. Okay, and we're going to transfer it also on the top side, and we're going to strike an arc, and we're also going to call this A to C. Okay, and then we also need to triangulate BC to try to find C. So B to C. So B to C. Lock it in place. Sharp point on elevation letter A, because that's also B. I'm going to do a mark right there, and we're going to call this B to C, and in the same position, put it on the top side, and do a mark. You're going to call this also B to C. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3 is AD and CD will find us D. So let's triangulate A to D. So A to D looks like that. Put on sharp point on elevation letter A. Strike a mark. And you're going to call this A to D. Leave it in the same position, transfer it over on the top side, elevation letter A, strike a mark. You're also going to call this A to D. Okay, now we need to find C to D. So sharp point on D and then open it up to C or vice versa. Lock it in place like so. Put your sharp point on C, elevation letter C. Go across, strike a mark, and you're going to call that C to D. Leave it in the same position and transfer it on elevation letter C on the top side. Strike a mark. And that's also C to D. And you know what? Just so that it's no confusion, I should just go ahead and label these. This section is going to be the bottom section. Bottom. And then from here up is going to be your top. Okay. So we triangulated the letters to find D. Now we need to triangulate letters C and E to find E. Okay, so that would be step 4. Now step 4, the same thing like step 1, A, B, G are true length lines. So that means that from here to here is true length. You don't necessarily have to, you don't have to triangulate that, but you do need to triangulate C to E to try to find E. So put your sharp point on E to C or vice versa. And I'll lock it in place like so. Okay. Now put your sharp point on C, elevation letter C on the bottom. Strike a mark, and you're going to call this C to E, and you're going to leave it in the same position. Put it on the top side, put on elevation letter C, strike a mark, and you're also going to call this C to E. Alright, so now the last one is F. We need to triangulate D to F and A to F to find F. So that's very simple. We can go D to F. It's going to be the same. So D to F, see, it's the same. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on, I can go A to F if I wanted to on the bottom. So I'm going to go A to F. So I'm going to put it here, strike a mark, and this can be called A to F. Okay, and then I can do the same thing on the top side if I wanted to. So I can go put it here, elevation letter A, and I can also call this A to F. It could also be D to F. I'll just put this right here, D to F, because they're the same. So, okay, so now that we have that, now that we have all the letters triangulated, now we can go ahead and start by making the top and bottom cheeks for our transitional elbow 90 degree. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with step 1, A, B, and G at 90 degrees. So let's see. And then we're going to go 3 inches horizontally. Okay, so we want to go 2 inches down, so 1, 2, and then we want to go 3 inches across, because that'll be to G, B to G, 1, 2, 3. We're going to label this as A, B, and G. As you can see right here, A, B, and G are automatically 90 degrees. So that's step 1. Step 1 is done. Okay, now let's have some fun. Step 2 is AC and BC will help us find C. So let's triangulate that. So let's go over to our true length rectangle. On the bottom, we're going to do the bottom first, not the top. So AC and BC. So where's AC? AC is right here. Sharp point on AC. Open up your pencil point to elevation letter C, because it's asking you to go to C, AC. Lock it in place. Okay, sharp point on A. Strike a random mark somewhere around here. Okay, now we want to go BC, so here's BC. B to elevation letter now C. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on B. Crisscross the previous arc. And now you found C. C is right there. So there's C. Okay, so that's step 2. Now step 3 is AD and CD will help us find D. So let's start off with AD. AD right here, AD. And then open up your pencil point to elevation letter D. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A. Swing it down, strike a random mark. And then we want to go C to D. So where's CD? CD is right here. Open up your pencil point to elevation letter D. Like so. Sharp point now on C to D. Crisscross the previous arc. And now you found D. Okay, so that was step 3. Step 4 is DE and CE will help us find E. So just like step 1, A, B, and G are true lengths at 90 degrees, the same thing applies to D to E. D to E is true length. So you can just go ahead and transfer it from here, like that. Sharp point now on D, and you're going to just do a random mark, like so. But we are going to go ahead and get C to E. So where's C to E? C to E is right there. Sharp point on C to E. Open it up to elevation letter E. And lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on C. Swing it down, crisscross the previous arc. And now you found E. Okay, let's go ahead and get a horizontal line. So you get a shape going more or less. Okay, the last one is F. So we're going to get AF or DF to help us find F. So we're going to go A to F or D to F. So I'm just going to go here, A to F, A to F. So here's A. And then open up to letter F, which is a halfway point. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put it on A, and then I'm going to crisscross, because it's the same. A to F and D to F is the same. And now you found F. F is right there. Alright, so now that we got that, let's go ahead and do some bisecting to find the throat and the heel. So let's go ahead and do the throat. So we're going to bisect AF and DF to find F. So you're just going to simply do some bisecting here. Like so. Put it right there. Crisscross the previous arc. Swing it over, put it on A, crisscross that one. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get some lines going from one point to the other. Then do the same thing on this side. And that is going to be your pivot point. Put your sharp point on that pivot point there. And then you can open it up to any letter you want. And hopefully they'll land. And there's your throat. Okay, let's do the same thing for the heel. So let's go ahead and bisect G, C, and EC. That one didn't reach. Let me do that one again. Okay. Same thing on this side. And there's your pivot point for your heel. Sharp point on that pivot point, and open it up to any letter you want. And hopefully they'll land. Pretty close. And there is your heel. So that is the bottom section. And that should be this. Hopefully it'll match. Pretty close, pretty close. Okay, and that will go on the bottom section, bottom. So that goes here. Actually, let me change it to a different color so you guys can see the difference. So there it is. Pretty close, right? Okay, last one. Let's do the top. So your top is going to be this section here, top, from here up. Okay, so let's go ahead and establish a 90 degree again. Okay, and get a 90 degree. Right around there. Okay. So same deal. We're going 3 inches from A or from B to G, and then from B to A is 2 inches. So 1, 2. So this is going to be A, B, and G. Alright, let's begin. So we have this made. Now let's go ahead and find C. So AC and BC will find us C. So AC is right there. And then open up your pencil point to elevation letter C. And I'll lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on A. And then do a random arc. And then let's go and find BC. Here's BC. So open it up to elevation letter C again from BC. I'm going to lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on B. Crisscross the previous arc. And now you found C. There's C. Okay, next step. Let's find D. So that's going to be step 3. So AD and CD will help us find D. So let's go look for AD. So AD is right here. And then open up to elevation letter D. Lock it in place. Put sharp point on A. Swing it over and do a random arc. Okay, now we want to find CD. So here's C to D. And then open it up to elevation letter D. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on C. Swing it down, crisscross the previous arc, and now you found D. Okay, step 4. D, E, and C will help us find E. DE is true length, so you can just take your tape measure, or not the tape measure, but rather your compass. And that is your true length. Put sharp point now on D, and then do a random arc. Okay, now let's go ahead and get C to E. So C to E is right there. And then open it up to elevation letter E. Like that. Sharp point now on C. Crisscross the previous arc. And now you found E. Okay, let's get a line going so we can get a shape more or less. Okay, last one is F. So the same thing. AF and DF. AF and DF are the same length. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this one right here. There's AF. And then open it up to elevation letter F. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A. Do a random arc. Leave in the same position. Crisscross the previous arc. And now you found F. Right here. Okay, now let's do some bisecting so we can find our throat. So let's bisect DF and AF. Leave it in the same position. Crisscross previous arc. There it is. Swing it over. Crisscross the previous arc. Okay. Line these up. Okay, do the same thing on this side. And there's your pivot point for your throat. Sharp point on your pivot point, put on any letter and then swing. Hopefully they'll land. Pretty close. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the heel. So let's bisect that. Hopefully they'll intersect each other, which they do. Perfect. Swing it over again, same position, go to G, and throw a line. Do the same thing on this side. Draw a line again, and your pivot point is right here, right on D. Hopefully you guys can see it. Wonder if this will work. Can barely see it. Anyways, sharp point on your pivot point, and put on any letter, and hopefully they'll hit, and swing it. And there it is. That should be your top. So hopefully this will match. Pretty close. And that should be right here. As you can see. And that is how you do a 90-degree transitional elbow. That is it for this video. So other than that, if you got any value out of this and know a friend or coworker that can get use out of this, go ahead and share this video with them. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.